More joining now. Welcome everyone. Just on 4:30, so we might get started. So today we're kind of going to be talking about just the Keelboat program that we've got currently, and Nev's going to be talking through some of his experiences. We've got some special guest speakers to talk about some of their previous speakers as well. And we're also going to be giving some tips on getting back on the water soon with the great news that we will be able to start training and racing again soon. So from the 6th of June, we'll be able to, that's when Australian Sailing has said we can get back on the water, so we'll be planning our return to sailing from that. So with that, I might just pass on to you, Nev, and maybe give just a little description for those that might be younger or new to the Keelboat program and how you guys run it.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and for those we know and those that we don't. The Keelboat development program is something that the club has developed over a number of years, and currently we use the Elliott 7s, and I'm sure that most of you have seen him. Probably young Peter Lawson that I've just seen joining us here, he would know about those boats. They're a fairly high performance boat that is also the same type of boat as used by the Cruising Yacht Club across the road, the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club, and a few other boats around the place, Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, and they're a development of the Elliott 6s that we all had years and years and years ago. So the clubs all felt that it was a step up. The commonality of the boats is great because it means that people can go to events and not go through a complete trauma to trying to assimilate into the boats and to become familiar, so they're almost identical these days, the way they are set up. Also keeping up with pace and style, the boat can run either a symmetrical or an asymmetrical spinnaker. So depending on the event, what you're doing, you can train and or race with either an asymmetric spinnaker or a symmetrical spinnaker. So clearly, of course, when an event is coming, notice a race, they tell you what you're going to be using, and it gives you an opportunity to adapt and train with those things. Normally with the youngsters, we have 5 on board, and probably a little bit awkward to coach in some senses because they're actually really, really fast boats. Faster than the 6, much, much faster than the 5.9. And then, of course, we had Inglings, which we used to use prior to that. And so keeping the boats together when we're doing mass coaching is really tricky. Having people sailing away, actually sometimes it's a bit of a pain if somebody's actually super, super fast, because we've got to get them to wait so that we can keep the group together so that everybody can work together. But having said that, they're very rewarding to sail. They are incredibly sensitive to weight and to trim and to steering. So they're actually really, really nice boats.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And maybe for those that might be looking to transition over from, say, a laser, what kind of tips would you have for sailors that would be transitioning over from a laser with the changes in the style of boat and how it reacts and those kind of things?
Well, the boat itself isn't a big problem because it's a boat. And I think people, when they're sailing, need to understand the boats are boats. And as long as we have the right procedures on board, then you can adapt fairly quickly. Having been a long-time laser sailor myself and having nursed a few people out of lasers into multi-crewed boats, I think the first thing is to learn to communicate. We tend to be somewhat selfish when we're sailing lasers. You see an opportunity, you push the tiller and you're on the other tack and it's all going. Well, when you start doing that on these boats, you'll get sworn at. People will say harsh things because they're in the water, they're on the other side. You won't be very happy either because, again, your crew will be dragging the water on the other side, not keeping the boat up and most definitely slowing it down. So the first big lesson is to communicate and actually to share a little bit. It's, you've got to gather information. Because there's 5 people on the boat, you have to learn to delegate a little bit. Things don't always go right, and that's where training comes in. If something's not going the way you want it to go, then we have to find a way of training so that it does work for you, because you can't do every job yourself. And not so long ago, I jumped in a laser after having not sailed one for quite a while, and my inner monologue was spooky because like, okay, coming up to the top mark, who's going to ease the Cunningham Eye? And it was like, well, clearly it's going to be me. And who's going to ease the Vang? That'll be me. And who's going to pull up the centerboard? Okay, turning down, ease the main sheet, please. You know, the whole thing was just all about me. And you don't realize how much when you get on a big boat and then when it's well sailed, how much you learn to delegate. And then the expertise at every level becomes high. So that's why it's a good boat, because not everybody's going to be steering, but everybody learns how to do things really, really well, how to develop as a team. And eventually, of course, you can swap around and do all sorts of things. But the big thing coming from a single hander, I mean, in the Opti and all these other boats, is just please learn to communicate.
For sure, that's a great tip. We might go to Marlene, because I know you're a bit short on time this afternoon, but maybe Marlene, if you can tell us a bit about your sailing pathway. I know you've done a lot of laser sailing and you've gone to various regattas and championships in your career. Maybe if you could talk about how you progressed through your sailing pathway and maybe your recent experience at New York Yacht Club.
Thanks, Angus. I just wanted to build off what Nev said. So from my background with the laser sailing and fleet racing, moving to Elliott's was like a fantastic opportunity to go outside of myself, work as a team, build on communication, and then actually develop my skills as a sailor through progressing across different roles in the boat. So, you know, laser sailor, you've got your main trim and your steering, and limited sort of adjustments to sail shape. And even in the Elliott's are relatively simple in that way. There was just so many learning opportunities to build on, from, you know, learning how to steer them, the main trim and adjustments there, kite trim, bow, and there's still so much to learn. And then to develop like my fleet racing skills towards match racing and changing that round and processing things in a different way was really, really great. And I think it was one of my favourite things that I've been able to get from the program, and has boosted my own sailing. You mentioned the New York event. Last year I competed in the Rolex New York Yacht Club Invitational Cup, and that was part of, I actually coached the daughter of one of the dads who was on the team, and so he was able to get me the spot on the team. We all joined in, and I was helping trim the runners, as well as calling pressure and shifts coming down the course, which was a fantastic opportunity. And I think, you know, it was a lot of the sailing that I've experienced with doing, if you get into more yachting stuff, it's a lot of who you know, and as well as the skills that you built out through your sailing. So with the Elliott program and the connections that I'd had through the squadron, it was sort of a platform to actually have that opportunity, and also the ability to communicate and work as a team. So with the event, I had never sailed with any of the guys before, and it was a really great chance for me to actually have a look into a team who all knew each other, knew their roles really well, and were able to trust each other to be able to perform to an exceptionally high standard. And that was really incredible to see. And one of the biggest takeaways was their ability to communicate, which was really, really cool. Currently, I'm doing some match racing with the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron program with a group of girls, with Maddie O'Shea steering, and Tiana and Brooke and Ella. And that's just sort of working out, you know, as a really green team coming forward and building the skills we have so that we can actually become a little bit more competitive down the track. So that's my background through Elliott's and attempting a little bit of yachting, and yeah, my experience of the program.
Yeah,
I've got a question for you, Marlena.
Yes.
Did you roll down the inclined lawn at the New York Yacht Club?
No, they told I was very strongly encouraged to do so from Dave Edwards, and as I thought about attempting it, I got pulled aside by the tactician, and was said that would look irresponsible in my squadron uniform. So I didn't.
Right. Could you give us some background on what that is, Nev? What do you mean by that?
The New York Yacht Club is an amazing establishment. Would you not agree, Marlena?
Oh, like just indulgent, just fabulous. Very, very nice grounds. Lovely lawn, very steep at the top, down from the clubhouse down to the bottom.
It's about a foot. There's a part of the lawn that must be 40 degrees, 45 degrees down. and it is a tradition, although it is strongly discouraged by the yacht club. But it's just such one of those pieces of grass. It's beautiful. You go, I have to roll down that lawn. And so I know that at one stage or another, most people that go there, even those that are quite toffee, end up having a little roll.
Nev, was that you? Was that?
Not in, but may I say, not in team or club uniform.
Yes, that was a trippy hazard,
That's
but
the
did enjoy a good drink from the cup at the end because we won. Which apparently I've heard has made it back to the yacht club, so I need to go down and have a look and check it out.
You should go and celebrate celebrate your hard work.
Yeah, actually, I'll go and take a little selfie next to it and send it into the squad.
Good to show the thing. If I can to the group, I mean, Marlena is probably being a little bit humble. I think the team that they are assembling, it is or started off as a bit of a green team. I think you girls have assembled quite a good team, and I actually think it has massive potential. I think the dynamics on that team are first class, and I hope you're all enjoying being a part of it, even though there hasn't been much sailing lately. I can just tell that everybody's wheel spinning to get on, and I do think that you've got a lot of good sailing in front of you with that team.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think one of the joys is being able to sail with different people, and you learn so much. Like from my experience with different coaches and sailing with different people, you take away something, like you add it to your suitcase every time you get back out there. And it's just amazing to be able to apply those skills, and you just, and it's not even just the sailing content you learn, it's the friendships that you build and the dynamics that you have as a team. And you build those skills and you use them in other places in your life. And you also just have really good mates. Like we're like the girls team as well, just have so much fun together, and we're all so passionate about the sailing. So it makes it a really great experience. And
again, going back to the actual sailing that you did in New York, I've done a lot of sailing with David Edwards, as you may know. And I rate him as one of the best spinnaker trimmers around. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Did you learn anything from him?
I didn't sit too close to him, so I didn't hear enough, but he was very clear with his kite, like the way he communicated about what he wanted from the boat, or what needed to change to make sure that he was able to trim the kite the best he could. The experience, he actually came out with us, the girls, the other day before we went into lockdown to talk us through a bit of kite trim. And I think I'll need another refresher lesson from Dave. Good quality banter was a big takeaway as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy to help.
Yeah, so he's a great member to have there. It's amazing to see as well, through all the connections that you build through that, how many people are willing to help and are interested in your sailing, and then are interested in you as part of a team, and you don't know if you don't ask. So it was just, it's great. You know, I had the connection myself. So Maddie and Tian, it's always just like having people out helping us learn, like your you Nev coming down for NSL and offering that extra support, like all those things just add up so much to your own experience, and it's just great. I love the community through all of that.
Yeah, it's a good place.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to run. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But
no, that's all right.
Thank you for today. And I'll have to make it to my uni lecture. Have a great evening.
Thanks very much for that, Marlena.
Thanks, Sam. All right, bye.
Cheers, Marlena.
See you later. All right. Well, we might go on to Jack. Are you there, Jack? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Yeah. So maybe we might go to your most recent regatta in New Zealand. Can you talk us through some of the preparation and some of the things you did to get in the mindset for that regatta and just leading up to it?
Yeah, sure. So the two regattas we went to in New Zealand, both of them presented their own different challenges. So one was held in Wellington. So Wellington's obviously a very windy city for all the sailors in the call. We probably all know that. And it was also on a boat that we had never sailed on before, which was the Elliott Sixes. So that in itself was quite a challenge because we didn't have any Elliott Sixes in Sydney, and we were planning to go up and train at Newcastle on their boats. However, we couldn't get that organized. So that was a really interesting challenge to prepare for. So one of the first and biggest issues we had was the Elliott Sixes, you need to be lighter on them. So we actually had to lose, I think combined in the team, something around 40 kilos or something like that, combined between our team, 30 kilos, sorry, which was really a massive, massive challenge. And it's something I never really experienced in lasers. And it's quite interesting when you get into this yachting world, or keelboating, that you have to kind of play with your weight. And that was the first challenge we had to deal with. The other thing was just doing all the preparation we could, like watching videos, changing our processes on the Elliott 7s in Sydney, so that when we went to New Zealand and we competed, we had a plan on how we would work the boat. And then obviously that played into when we first got there. I think on our very first day, all of us hadn't eaten in the last 24 hours. So we were all very frustrated at each other. And it was right when we had to...
Very happy bunch of people, hey?
Yeah, well, happy after the breakfast, I will say. But yeah, in our first training session, it was quite hard to all stay calm, but we managed to get through. It was very nice that Nev kept his feedback to the video to watch once we had our big meals, rather than at the time. But it was a really interesting experience. And then, we had to learn really quickly within 2 short training sessions how to sail these boats. And then we went into the actual competition. And
so, Jack, you were presented with a special challenge during this particular event because of circumstances. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. So with the event, due to the amount of people that were there to help bring the event up into a higher grade. So each match racing regatta that we do is graded, and it helps you earn more or less points that goes to your world sailing ranking. So obviously you want to go to events that have a higher ranking. To get this event as a higher ranked event, they needed more skippers. So at the last, I think it was the morning of the second day, we found out that each team has to put up a second skipper. And at the time I wasn't actually skippering the boat. I was doing main sheets. So without doing any training or anything, we had to change up our whole team, and I got to steer the boat, and I swapped with our skipper at the time, which was Jed, for him to do my position. And that was a really, really interesting and fun experience to be able to steer in the event as well. Do some.
And how did that go for you, Jack?
It went very, very well. So we managed to stay undefeated in our part of the round robin, which was really, really fun. And we got the only windy day. So surprisingly, that was the other thing. We went into Wellington thinking it'll be really windy, and there was only one windy day. So that was really, really fun. And then our next event was held in Auckland. It's now called the Harkin Youth Match Racing Regatta. It's an international regatta, but this year it was especially competitive because it was the regatta that was held the week before the World Championships, the Youth Match Racing World Championships. So we had teams from Britain, America, I think there was an Irish team there, lots of Kiwi teams, and lots of teams.
Denmark, really, I think.
Yeah, Denmark, New Caledonia, France, all of that. So it was really, really cool to be able to compete in an event where pretty much all the top sailors were there. So that brought its own challenges. And then as well, sailing in Auckland is very different than Sydney Harbour, because it's a harbour, but probably with 3 or 4 times as much current. I mean, there was times where we were going around the race course and we were going faster sideways than we were going forwards. So it's a really, really fun experience. And then the biggest thing was just meeting so many people from around the globe there, and making friends from like all these people from around different cities and all that. It's really, really fun. And then you go on the water and you get to shout at them and be really aggressive and anything, but then hop off the water and make friends and all that. So that's a really, really fun part of match racing. Yeah, that's what I have to say about New Zealand.
So, and Jack, if I may, oh, sorry, Angus, my apologies.
No, you go, that's all right.
Well, I was just going to say, what do you think your best experience out of all of that was, from what you experienced on this New Zealand trip?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll probably say, I would probably say learning how to adjust my sail trim for different boats and different conditions. I think I just haven't paid attention to it as much before, especially in lasers where you really sheet the boat block to block and that's it. I think that was one of the most enjoyable experiences there, was looking at other teams and having to adapt really fast to how I was meant to adjust the boat, especially when we were in Wellington, where we had never sailed the boats before, and the way you meant to trim the sails there was dramatically different than what we would do here in Sydney. So that was a really interesting experience. And then another, I would say really valuable experience for me, and enjoyable, but also really added to my sailing experience, was the working out how to communicate better with your team. Because that's probably one of the biggest challenges I've faced coming into Elliott's, was when you're on a laser, you're making all the decisions yourself, you're not having to verbalize them. And when you hop on an Elliott, it's very challenging to try and get your point across, or, you know, say certain things, especially to the skipper, when you're trying to help give them information that they need, because sometimes the reality is they're going to disagree with you. And a lot of the times they are right to disagree with you, or they're just not able to do a maneuver. But sometimes you're right. So it's quite frustrating, but at the same time, you have to understand what they're going through. And I think that was a really valuable experience, was kind of getting a better understanding of how to better communicate with the other sailors on the boat, especially the skipper.
Would you also say the timing of the information is critical?
Oh, for sure. I think the timing of information was really important, but also who was in charge of getting certain information. I think there is such thing as well as having too much information, and that's kind of an issue that we faced in New Zealand that we'd never faced before. We went through this issue, I think, ever since the middle of last year, where we just weren't giving enough information to our skipper. And then we came to New Zealand, and we actually, by then, had actually been giving too much to our skipper, who then ended up relying on us too much for our maneuvers and stuff. And there was a lot of critical moments where we realized that, especially during pre-starts and stuff, when you're making decisions, split seconds decisions, by the time someone on the boat says, oh, we need to jibe now because the other team's covering our air, by then it's too late. You know, these decisions you need to make within 3 seconds. And if someone's saying something and it takes 5 seconds for you to hear that person say it to you and then register it, like, the moment was already passed. So that's, yeah, for sure, the timing and the amount of information was really, really important.
And then what would you do next time? So if we've got an event coming up and, you know, just say you're going to battle with the same guys in the same format, what would you do next time to improve it?
Well, for sure, the first thing would be an understanding where we went in and said, first of all, everyone knew what their roles and responsibilities were. Especially with our skipper knowing that he was in charge and in control of the boat. He didn't actually have to necessarily follow our instructions. I think when we went into the event, he was relying too much on us, and we made him feel like he needed to listen to us. So the first thing would be definitely giving more control to the skipper, especially during critical times of the race, like in the pre-start. And then I would say the other thing would be, for me personally, it would be adjusting to the different boats. When it comes to adjusting to the different boats, I think I could have just been paying attention a little bit more to the local champions, so the local sailors, and seeing what they were doing. I think I spent too long trying to work out stuff myself, and I think it would be much more valuable to watch the teams that have been sailing these boats for months and just going, okay, so what are they doing differently? Rather than focusing it on myself and then realizing halfway through that I probably should be paying attention to the people who are the fastest.
Then beat them.
And then beat them, of course, yes.
Yeah. And then, so your best lesson over there?
Best lesson, I would say, because especially considering that I also would like to become a skipper one day, I think the best lesson was that that there is such thing as too much communication. Because I think through the whole year lead up to that event, I learned a lot about the value of communication, but I never thought about the idea that maybe you could rely too much on communication. So back to that communication part, yeah, probably definitely there are times where you kind of just have to filter information and be in control of the boat, because some decisions can't be communicated to you. They need to be made even faster within your head.
No, 100%. You're in the middle of a mark rounding, or you're on a final approach. I mean, there is no chance to get the information out and have somebody process it. So it's got to be your boat. That's 100%. But you guys did a good job, and I must say, the circumstances where they allowed us to have another helmsman, I think was good for you because it made you push yourself a little bit, made you back yourself, and that's probably the thing I saw. What as you got through, I thought you were doing a good job trusting your instincts a little bit more. And then the other stuff, bit of coach's feedback here was that I thought things improved when you were able to relax, let the guy steer a bit, and actually do your trimming. And I'd say the other way as well. When the other fellow took your job, when he was able to relax a bit, focus on his trimming, and trust you to do your job, I thought the whole team went well. And that's what the whole teamwork is. You've got to get to a level, trust everybody to do their jobs, and get on with it.
Yeah, it was definitely learning about that case of it's definitely quality, not quantity. If you do your one job that you've been designated on the boat and you do it well, you're going to be much better if you, instead of worrying about other people's jobs on the boat.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, sure.
It's a team.
Which is obviously a really hard thing when you're coming from the lasers. Sorry, Angus, but yeah, that was a really hard thing to learn for me when you come from the lasers, when you're in control of everything. But it's also a really valuable thing to learn because the only boat that you can go into beyond your youth sailing that has one person steering really is like the Moth, the Wasp, and the Laser. That's like, a big class. And then the rest of the boats, you have crew on it that you need to work with. So it's stuff that you learn in these sort of boats that you would have never got in the laser, and you realize how important they are to your development in sailing.
Very good.
For sure.
Train your team so you can trust them.
Yeah, that's right. Kira, you've done some match racing events before. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have.
What would you say the challenges of match racing is like compared to, say, laser sailing or Optimus sailing on those single-handed boats?
I mean, personally, I always was a bit more teams racing, match racing focused. So fleet racing isn't really I don't enjoy it as much. I like having the intensity of like match racing.
Okay.
Yeah, I find myself getting a bit distracted on in fleet races, and whereas with match racing, because it's a lot more intense and short races, I find having to maintain that like intense focus for a shorter period of time a bit more exciting and I guess engaging.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. So you find it easier to get in the zone when you're kind of more part of a team?
Yeah, for sure.
No, that's interesting. Do you find that as well, Jack? Is it easier to get in that kind of racing headspace when you're part of a team and you're working together?
Yeah, I always am very competitive, so I think I can always get into that racing mode, but it definitely does get your heart pumping a lot faster when you're doing match racing and everything and having a lot of other people around. Like normally in fleet racing, my heart would only get pumping if I was, hiking a lot or whatever, but in fleet racing or in match racing, even if it's just a pre-start where you're not like a light wind pre-start when there's not really much physical aspect going on to the racing, your heart rate's still going at 1,000,000 miles an hour because there's so much going on.
Yeah, for sure. Neb, for those that don't know much about match racing, could you maybe describe what the starting sequence is like and what that kind of, I know I've seen a few match races, but I know it's a very exciting, sometimes risky time that start procedure. Could you kind of explain that for those that might not know?
Yeah, I can. It's something that's developed over the years, but in the last period since the 90s has been match racing. The start is designed to bring the boats together and basically to face each other almost immediately. So you start from the windward side of the starting line and beyond either end. So one boat is assigned what we call the starboard end. So he'll be coming in from the race committee side, and the other boat is, which we given the starboard end is given a yellow flag, and then the other boat will be assigned a blue flag, and they have to come in on port tack from beyond the pin, the other end of the starting line. The starting line is usually quite short. It's rarely more than 30, 40 seconds long to sail. We actually adjust it during the day. If the breeze comes up, we lengthen it a little bit. If the breeze dies, we shorten it. So it's designed that the first encounter of the boats is somewhat combative. And of course, the starboard tack boat has largely, more rights than the port tack boat. The port tack boat has to keep clear, but also there's a prerequisite that to start the race, you actually have to get in below the starting line to get racing. And so it's really, really exciting. It means you've got to be good with your timing, your time on distance to get into the start. You've got to be very good with your communication and your crew work. It means you've got to obviously get into the zone where you want to start, and then of course have the ability to trim and sail your way out of trouble. Very, very exciting. And I reckon you do one match racing event and you've probably done more for your sailing than most people would do in a full season of yachting. And that's why, whilst there's not as much adult match racing around as there used to be, the fact of the matter is that it just fills you with skills, and you've got to know the rules, you've got to know how to communicate with your team, you've got to be slick with your boat handling, and also you've got to back yourself a bit to do your job and to do it well. And I do believe, I love teams racing as well, but I think from a purist point of view, I think that match racing is probably the most gorgeous aspect of our sport entirely.
Yeah, for sure. And for some of our young sailors that might be interested in getting involved in, say, the junior keelboat program, would you say it'd be best for them to continue on perfecting their skills in, say, a laser or an optimist before they say join the junior keelboat program, or would that be something you could pick up along the way?
Look, I don't think you should finish one, stop, and then go and do something else. I've always been a strong supporter of doing as much sailing as you can. So don't stop sailing your laser, don't stop sailing your optimist. You probably find if you're still in an optimist, you might be lacking a little bit of strength, because sometimes you've got the Elliott is a bit of a step up, but certainly a competent laser sailor would be strong enough. And I'm not having a crack at anybody sailing an optimist at all, because obviously there's surprisingly fabulous individuals sailing in those boats, but pure strength sometimes does help a little bit. No, I would never suggest you stop sailing a laser. Keep sailing a laser, keep sailing your optimist, but do this other stuff as well. I mean, you want to sail as much as you can. Go windsurfing, go kite surfing, go sailing.
Yeah, I guess you can learn lots of different flights.
My word.
Classes. Tristan, I know we've got you on the call here as well. Have you done any match racing in your sailing career?
Sorry, I just started spinning on the bike.
Oh, sorry. Got you a bad time.
Yeah, I did do it for probably 4 or 5 years. Mostly with laser sailors that I was sailing against at the time. So it took us a while to learn the spinnaker stuff and the working as a team stuff like Jack described. But it definitely helped as far as learning how to control others within a fleet race. And I think like Neb said, you can kind of do both at the same time. Eventually, if you want to take one to the very top level, you probably have to sacrifice the other. But I think at the level we're talking about, you can definitely do both.
Well, Tristan, there's no reason why you couldn't do a little bit of match racing in lasers. The essence is still exactly the same, provided people play the game fairly, honestly.
Yeah.
There's no reason at all why you can't develop both skills at the same time, minus the teamwork spinnaker stuff. We used to do a fair bit of that on lasers when they were made out of wood.
I've brought that in the last year or so. When we have a smaller group, it's easier to manage, but yeah, it's definitely fun to practice.
Have you guys thought about doing a slalom?
In the laser?
Yeah.
I know that was a big thing in San Francisco many years ago, but
it used to be pretty big here too. We had it in Melbourne, and we had an annual one in Sydney. It was very exciting.
Yeah, no, we haven't done too much of that. I did a bit of that in my laser training off Freo when it was sort of 25 knots all the time, but I haven't done it so much here.
Oh, you should do it. Good fun day. Get a windy day, lovely.
Yes.
For sure. If anyone has any questions as well as we're going along, probably getting towards the end, but if you have any questions on the program or match racing in general, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. But Jack, what would you say that the social aspect is like going to, say, a match racing regatta versus, say, a laser championship regatta or something like that? Is the social aspect quite different, or?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the match racing community is a lot more. I think the difference from when you get into the pointy end of youth sailing, I feel like everyone does get quite competitive. Whereas in match racing, although it's still really competitive, everyone's very relaxed when they get off the water, and everyone's just there to have a really good time and everything. And there's a big feeling among elder sailors that we're there not only to compete and everything, but also enjoy ourselves and all of that. And it's really, really fun. And there's a lot of social aspects to match racing that you don't actually have in fleet racing. So, for example, a big part of match racing regattas is it sounds ridiculous, but just having like food together, because you actually have breakfast every single morning. So the club provides breakfast, and everyone comes in and sits down and gets to all eat breakfast together and talk to each other and all of that. And then often but I guess, which is like the fleet racing, is you have the sausage sizzle at the end of the day. And then as well, in the middle of the day, you often get taken off the boats for a little rest, and different people get taken off at different times, and you get to sit on a changeover boat, as we call it, which often is a nice yacht or something like that. And there's often another team then you get to watch and watch the match racing together and all get to comment and everything on it. And that's also a really nice aspect. Because I guess when you're in fleet racing, you never get to watch your own racing, whereas in the match racing you do.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting when you get to the end of a regatta, you have every other team sitting on the shoreline or on a boat watching the finals, and you all get to cheer and everything for the teams that you're going for. And it's a really, really awesome culture that you get exposed to that you don't quite get the same in fleet racing. But nevertheless, it's obviously still a really nice culture you have in fleet racing. But I guess the being able to have more opportunities to socialize and also the opportunity to witness the racing is a really fun aspect of match racing.
Definitely.
Jack, can I throw in here that
sport.
I think one of the reasons it's as social as it is because a lot of the grievances are left on the water because we have umpires there. So you don't come in and you're not looking over your shoulder at some guy that may or may not have cut you off at the top mark, or may not have ruined your start or whatever. You know, the rules are all done, the results are clean, everything is organised, and I do think that contributes to the harmonious atmosphere that exists between most match races. I think it helps a lot.
Oh yes, for sure, absolutely. And I think as well, everybody really understands that when you have a bad race or the other team gets an unfair call, we all have the understanding from each other that like we've had just as many good calls as we've had bad calls. So everyone's never really gets stuck up whenever they lose a race because they feel like they're being hard done by, because normally then a few races later you might get a call that goes in your favor that you really shouldn't have had.
I think you're right. That's yin and yang.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just going on from that, with all those social aspects of it, have you had any chances to gain connections to go down other sailing pathways, such as racing on various yachts around through match racing? Yeah,
I've gained opportunities to do branch out into other keelboats. So I've done some Yingling sailing. Never's helped set up that opportunity, and then as well I've had opportunities to go sail on the Etchells at Royal Sydney, which has been really, really exciting to do. And then for myself, because I'm only really new to the match racing and everything, but I know a lot of other sailors like Milena have been able to then go on and go into competing in massive yachting events around the world. And a lot of good match racers, they get good in some of their positions they do on the boat, and then there's some teams that will take them over to big international events because they're good at it. So I know a lot of sailors, when we go to events, are kind of like the local sailor, and I think Kira and Matty Corman and some other sailors got to sail with the New Caledonian team at Hardy Cup at the start of this year, because, you know, they had the local skills. So that's another really interesting aspect to the match racing, is being picked up by other teams and getting to compete on them.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, Kira, you said you did have some challenges with the team where the English might not have been as good on the race course. How did you find that?
Oh no, like they spoke really good English. They just didn't speak English on the boat because they were planning to sail at the Worlds. So they were planning to speak French at Worlds. So they wanted to practice in French. Bit of a challenge, but like it was all good in the end. Like our last day, it was our best day, which is a bit unfortunate because we probably could have done a lot better if we had picked up our game earlier in the game. But, you know, it was a really fun experience, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the challenge working with a new team. You got to kind of work with the quirks that they may have and get on with the race.
I've kind of made it a bit more interesting and fun in the end, I guess. Like, a bit frustrating to start with, but picked up some French.
Oh, that's always good. That's always good. All right. Well, we're probably getting towards the end. Did you want to chat about anything else, Nev? Or
well, look, really, you know, I think it's great that people are taking interest, and I know there's some other slightly older juniors there, Jane and Peter and Whitney. But you know, when we get rolling, if anybody wants to come have a look from any of the other groups, they're most welcome. Tristan, if we can help you do a little bit of match racing, you know, with your laser people and the other guys, you know, we would be happy. I mean, our guys, I'm sure, would be loving to jump in. I strongly support cross-training in different classes, and I would very much like to see some of our guys and girls, I mean, in our girls team, which are, again, I think they've got you know, we've got a great bunch of girls, not just the ones in our team, but, you know, I think I would like to see a little bit of cross-pollination. So, you know, maybe even if we meet up in the, what are those things again? Pelicans? No.
puffin paces.
Puffins. But yeah, I think we should try and cross-pollinate. I don't think that any of the groups should be strangers to the other. You know, I don't think that the kids in the lasers should look and go, ooh, you know, those Elliots, they're a whole different thing. I think, you know, if people want to come and have a go, if we can slot them in, you know, we'd love them to try. I think it's very important that we sort of blend it a bit. And, you know, there's lots of good sailors have come out of youth sailing. We had, you know, I grabbed two a long time ago and got them to the Olympic Games, Josh and Dave. So, you know, there's a lot of talent, I know, in amongst our kids, and the club is clever enough sometimes to help support, and that's absolutely important. So, you know, the more we can do together and the less things become strange to each other, I think the better it will be, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess you learn so many different skills from trying out different classes as well that you can bring back to what you are sailing currently. So that's always beneficial as well.
Angus can organise anything.
We can make it happen. You say the word and we can make it happen. All right. Do we have any other questions from our younger or older sailors here? Maybe for some of our match racing guys? Feel free to ask away. Otherwise, yeah, send us a message and we can touch on different topics for next week. But
I think really quickly, I'll just put one more point in. I think another really important thing in match racing that definitely relates a lot more to my fleet racing than other aspects of the teamwork and the match racing. But me and Milena both have found that in our match racing, for example, because we both do strategy on the boats, verbalizing your wind calls and your also hearing other people talk about the wind and strategy and what's going on the course and where we should go, it helped us develop our decision-making skills like a lot faster. And I've found that it's definitely improved my decision-making in the laser, because when you have to say what you see aloud, it helps it lock in your head what is good, what is bad. And then often you remember when you make a bad decision when you have to say it aloud, because you know, it definitely affects the whole team. And you know, when you say it aloud, okay, it didn't work out. Whereas when you kind of just say it in your head, you kind of forget about it quite easily. So I think that's another aspect of match racing. If you're looking for something in match racing that will relate much more directly to your laser sailing, especially if you want to stick to a laser sailing pathway and pursue that, match racing can still add a lot to that. that you wouldn't normally be able to get from just sailing lasers alone.
Yeah, for sure. We've just had a question from Rachel McLean here as well. She said, is there an Elliott program at the Squadron for adults, say for ladies twilight? So for our match racing program, that is up to 30-year-olds currently, but I don't see any reason why we can't do, you know, say an older adults group of a match racing program.
Well, what's that word older, please? That's nasty.
Maybe above 30s.
How about open?
Open. That's a better word. That's a better word. But yeah, the Elliots are available for hire for the Friday twilights, I know as well. So if you would like to take them out and give them a spin, that they are available for that.
And further to that, there are women's events that are not just open to our youth teams. There are women's keelboat championships. There are all sorts of other things. So of course we could organise something on the Elliots to get you guys set up for it. And I know that Middle Harbour run one. I think Manly run one, and I actually think, Angus, we should look at running a women's event too, where we have people coming in and probably using the Elliots. I don't quite know how our programming and timing is, but you know,
yeah, for sure.
If you guys are up for it, let us know and see if we can facilitate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's been quite a lot of she sails activities coming up recently with the she sails teams racing regatta that happened a couple of months ago, which was great to get going. So yeah, if we can get something going for match racing, why not? That'd be fantastic.
Or fleet racing, it doesn't really matter.
Just
upskill.
For sure. Yeah, because I know a lot of people would be interested in from a whole variety of age ranges and sexes to get into match racing and get a feel for what it's like, and yeah, give it a go.
And we can cater well for it. I mean, aside from the match racing and everything else, I mean, you've got Karen. I mean, you couldn't have a better person in Karen. She's multiple Olympian, incredibly talented sailor, and of course is a very strong supporter of women's yachting. So yeah,
absolutely,
bring it on.
Yeah, Karen can answer any of those questions as well. So she is fantastic for that. All right. Well, yeah, if no one else has any other questions, we might end it on that. But yeah, if you have any other points you'd like us to discuss or talk about, if you have any questions about anything we've talked about tonight, feel free to get in contact with myself or even Nev or Karen. But yeah, we'll see you all next Thursday. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to Nev, Jack, Marlena, and all those we chatted to.
See you later, everybody.
Thanks very much. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
No worries, Rachel. See you next time.